So langsam bitte zum Ende kommen, damit wir mit der Pressekonferenz beginnen können.
So please finish making your photos so we can start with the press conference, please.
Dankeschön. Setzen Sie sich bitte. Please sit down so we can start the press conference. Dankeschön. Hier vorne. Bitte setzen Sie sich, die Fotografen, damit wir anfangen können.
Thank you. The photographers, please take your seats.
Meine Damen und Herren, herzlich willkommen zur
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the conference on a competition film on the occasion of the 69th International Berlin Film Festival, and we're presenting today the film So Long, My Son.
Und wie immer haben wir ein tolles Panel.
And as always, we have wonderful guests, very many guests, as a matter of fact. And we're so pleased to have many actors and actresses here today. I hope you have many questions. First of all, we have Yu Jun.
In der Rolle der Lia Yan.
Then as Lia Yan, Ali Lia.
In der Rolle des Yu Qing.
As Yu Qing, Wang Yuan.
In der Rolle der Wang Liyun.
As Wang Liyun, a very warm welcome to Yong Mei. In 2001, he was here already with Beijing Bicycles. In 2008, with Love.
And now he's back again. Jetzt ist wieder. Wir freuen uns ganz
and now he's back again. We're so happy to have him here, the director, screenwriter, and producer Wang Xiushui.
In der Rolle des Liu Dao
as Liu Daojun, Wang Jingchun.
Und in der Rolle der Shen Muli.
And as Shen Muli, Ji Qi.
Ein herzliches Willkommen.
A very warm welcome to Zhang Jun Zhao Zhangzhu Hong. And I'm sorry for not pronouncing this correctly.
Und auch ein herzliches Willkommen
and a welcome to the producer, Liu Chuan.
Bevor ich die Fragen an Sie reiche, eine Frage an den Regisseur.
I have a question to the director. In China, there's a saying which says, look to the future and forget the past. It seems you didn't want to forget the past. So please tell us how their journey into the past started and how much of that past you still found.
Yeah. You're asking me, right? Right. Talking about China, after the Cultural Revolution ended, there was that saying, look forward and don't think about the past. Now, that was, at the time, a matter of just forgetting about it all, getting on with the economy, and freeing yourself from ideology. If you use it now, however, with the economy having made certain strides, if we look back at the whole process we've gone through, we need to take a fresh look at that phrase. We still need to keep looking ahead, but we do need to take lessons from the past in order to avoid making unnecessary mistakes and to do things better as we go on.
To you, as a producer of the film, it is, of course, very challenging. It's a very ambitious project. Can you tell us a little bit about how you met the director, how you planned your production, and what were the biggest challenges from your point of view?
Thank you for the question. The whole production cycle was very long, from screenplay, shooting, and, well, actually, to the initial preparations of the screenplay, up to post-production, it took a total of 4 years. to get the film made, and it covers a very large time span. There's a very large cast as well. You can see an example of that from the size of today's podium. Now, the scale of the production is the largest that Wang Xiaoshuai has ever directed. But because of the script, we were all very strongly moved. So while finding financing and getting it produced, we overcame a lot of challenges. And I think at the end of the day, it has been worth it, and all of us feel that.
Now, we rarely have the opportunity to have so many actors and actresses here. So I would like to invite you, the actors and actresses, to say something about your experience while filming, and perhaps also talk about your own challenges while making the film. And tell us what this journey about the past did with you. What impressed you most? I would like to start on the very corner, and perhaps all of you could make a short statement.
Good afternoon, my name is Du Jiang, and I'm very happy to be with you at the Berlinale. My first time in Berlin, in fact, and it's the first time I've worked with Wang Xiaoshuai as a director. My part in the film, well, the role starts as a child, in fact. So I had to, from the beginning, play somebody who's kept a secret inside him for 3 decades or so. There's quite a lot of challenge in doing that. And the physical toll that it takes on you, carrying a secret like that for that long. But Wang Xiaoshuai helped me a lot. He told me that, you can think about it like there being a tree growing and growing and growing inside you, and ultimately it is going to burst out of you. And that was very inspiring for me when playing the part, and I'm very grateful to Wang Xiaoshuai for saying that to me, and I hope that you will enjoy or have enjoyed the film. Thank you.
大家好，我是蒙古族演员艾丽亚。
My name is Ailia. I'm of the Mongolian nationality in China, the Mongolian ethnicity. I am also in Berlin for the first time, and I'm very honored to have had the privilege to work on a film like this with Wang Xiaoshuai. And it's been a privilege to work with so many outstanding actors, and I'd like to also thank the numerous media here today for their presence. I've been in a lot of films myself, but it's the first time for me to be involved in a film such as this one, and it's been a particular privilege for me, and I hope that you will be happy with the results in So Long, My Son. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Wang Yuan. I'd like to thank you for being here. So Long, My Son was a big challenge for me. In fact, because when I started, I was faced with... Am I allowed to do spoilers here? Hang on. Oh, no, they've all seen it. Okay, right. A big challenge, a rebellious teenager. First day I got there, I couldn't really get into the character. So I really had to try very, very hard to get under his skin. I'm very grateful for the support I've received from Wang Xiaoshuai and the rest of the cast members who have shown me new perspectives in acting. And I hope that you will also enjoy the film that we've created for you. Good afternoon. My name is Yong Mei. It's my first time in Berlin as well, and it's my first time to take one of the lead parts in a film. I have seen what it's like to be a mother who loses a son and who sort of floats through life and then finds new hope at the end. I do not have children myself, but you see the process of her having a 1-year-old child, and then the child gets to the age of Du Jiang, sitting to my right. So I've experienced the 3 decades of loneliness, longing, and love experienced by a mother. Thank you very much. Good afternoon. You've all seen the film, right? So I'd like to see, did you like it? Do you think it was a good film? Well, thank you for your applause and the answers that you have shouted out. That's the answer that I wanted to give you, actually, because I felt a sense of real beauty and real love when making this film. That's all I want to say. Good afternoon. My name is Qi Xi. I play the role of Mo Li in the film, So Long, My Son. Now, I agree with what everyone else has said. Let me share a story. A couple of days ago when I arrived in Berlin, I was there at the airport and I saw the name of the film in English, So Long, My Son. I was suddenly close to tears because I'd worked for 2 years nearly on the film, but this beauty and this love, I was holding it within myself. And then I finally saw the name of the film on that poster, and I sent a text message to the director straight away. I was really very, very moved, and I hope that if you are as moved as I am, that you will be able to put your weight behind it too, and I hope you very much enjoy it. My name is quite long. My name is Zhao Yan Guo Zhang. It's a very old-fashioned name in Chinese terms. It actually used to mean 2 states, that had the name of 2 states. Now, Wang Xiaoshuai was at the same university as me, obviously a bit earlier than I was, but it was a privilege to work with him and to come to Berlin today. And the role that he gave me was also a great privilege. The screenplay goes through the whole process of growing up with these people, but there's something of it in everyone in China. The role that I play is from a particular period where reform and opening up had just started in China. At the time, you'd be terrified if you went out wearing flares. You used to hide them in your bag, and then once you'd got out of the house, you'd go to a public toilet and then change into your flares, and then go out and see your friends at school. And then when you came out from school, you'd change out of them in a public toilet, because if you got found on the street or at home, somebody, maybe your parents, would come up with a pair of scissors and cut the flares off the trousers you were wearing. Now, I play somebody who's very lucky in the film. Oh, yes, he does get sent to jail, but China is opening up, and so at the end he enjoys a lot more happiness, and I hope that we managed to share some of that happiness with you, and I hope that we'll be able to bring you lots of luck, and that China will become more and more open and fortunate.
Thank you to all of you, and now let's have the questions.
Yes, hello, this is Yanis from Greece. I have a question to the director. It has to do with the narration of the stories. The narration is structured with a very poetic, fluid way. It seems that time is in a way of no importance. So I would like you to tell us if that was a risky choice to take. Thank you.
对这部电影的整体的结构是
Thanks for the question. In structural terms, the film was a bit of a risky choice because it's a story that spans 3 decades. If we go in strict chronological order, it makes it a huge project. And life is obviously different in some parts from the film, but I was working with a screenwriter called Mei, who helped me to redo the screenplay. And when looking back at these different moments, it really does give you a sense of how short life actually is. If you move out, if you transcend your own position, that very small space on the whole length of time, it allows you to go back through a series of fragments and re-inject some experiences and emotions in a much more effective way. So we chose that different time structure in the film to tell the story of 3 decades in just the way I wanted to do it. I put the emotional content in the places I wanted to. I think it was risky, but I think we did pull it off in the end. Now, one major technique is that we didn't use any special editing effects. We used very clean editing effects showing the past. Now, we didn't do any fades in or fades out and so on, because that's not the way people remember things. People remember things much more clearly. So it's all as if it's actually happening. So we do not use any special editing effects to show time transitions. But I hope that when you watch the film, you feel like the characters who experience the slow progression of time. And after those 2 to 3 hours, I hope that the audience can understand the fact that it's the present for the 2 leads who are standing by the sea. Now, and suddenly we then jump to their older years, and then you realize that the 2 hours that have gone by were actually also from the past, and then you realize that the present is actually much, much later in the film. Now, that was a risk that I took, but I hope that you'll consider it an acceptable one to have taken. Thank you.
My name is Mahari Sigit, African Refugee News. This is a masterpiece of narrative. I've never seen a film like this, because you structure the life of the people from the era of Mao till today. But I was focused in this, the loss of identity from a structural life during Mao and today, because the family seems splitting, but they always try to find something. How did you do this? And then why did you choose this beautiful score music? Amazing. This Irish music is really fantastic.
Let me answer the second question first. For Auld Lang Syne, or in Chinese, 友谊地久天长 is well known in China. Everyone of a certain age knows that song. The lyrics are different in Chinese, but everyone has grown up with that song. I think it originally comes from Ireland. So that's a song that really resonates with not just me, but with everyone. So it's very effective to use in the film. Now, people who have grown up in China in particular can see the changes that have taken place there very, very clearly in the film. Now, I don't know if we're lucky or unlucky to have gone through that. Now, as a creative artist, I'm able to take that huge time span and all these changes and put a very subjective angle on it. Now, the extent of change often means that people don't recognize the places they used to live in. I'm here 11 years later in Berlin again, but nothing really has changed if you look at the streets outside. So, that brings back a lot of memories for me straight away. So, we have a very complex relationship with the whole question of change in China. Now, you talk about changing eras. Well, our generation and our parents were really at the forefront of that change, and they have experienced both the old society and the new society. Now, that gave me the opportunity as a director to try and tell you almost everything that Chinese people have experienced, and I tried to find as much as possible in there. There are lots of people who are happy to go back to the Chairman Mao era. That's fine, okay, but society does need to develop. Now, lots of new problems have occurred during that. The rich-poor divide, in particular in China, or the current problem with corruption. These are all things that you have to deal with during the process of development. Now, we also need film to tell us the story of the past in order to avoid making mistakes in the future. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for a film which I really found resonated with me. I was born in the 1980s. Now, Berlin hasn't changed that much in actually 30 years or so, but if you go back to China, it's a totally different story, of course. I would like to ask you the following question. Going back over 30 years, I mean, if you look at this film, it's like it's standing right there in front of you again, as if it happened yesterday. And my subjective feeling is that all these characters are driven by the tide of change, and they have to carry these wounds with them throughout their lives. There are some references to questions that are perhaps sensitive in China, such as the former one-child policy. Did you have any difficulties because of these allusions to sensitive topics in the Chinese context? Firstly, I think Chinese audiences will feel a lot of resonances when they watch this film. And when it's shown in China, I'm sure that they will feel that. Now, there are references to special policies that change people's fates. That's unavoidable because that's what we lived through. What I'm interested in, though, as an artist, is more people's flexibility and their ability to love and their inner benevolence in China. My parents and grandparents have undergone so much, so many changes, but they're still very brave and optimistic in the way they approach life and the way they try to achieve a better life. And that's a very, very moving thing, and I hope that comes out in the film as well, because that's also what I was trying to do.
Eine Frage da hinten, bitte. Ja. Ja, genau.
Deborah Cole from AFP. I have a question for
我是来自法新社的 Deborah Cole， 我想问一下导演还有刘璇制片人，刚才讲起了一些深圳的影响人生的特殊政策。那么据我所知，这次柏林电影节有2部中国电影临时退出了，据说因为审查的问题。
Dealing with such sensitive issues was able to make it, past the censors and come here. And you said that you had that you planned to show this in China. I was wondering if you anticipate any potential official backlash, in the coming months. Thank you.
Okay, because the very first. 对，之前的有一段因为没有翻译，所以
Yes, I missed the first part of that, so I was just listening to the English of the question, but I think I've got most of it. And indeed, there have been unexpected things that have happened with the Berlinale this year, and it's had an impact on everyone and on the Berlinale. I was on the plane when the news came out, and I only heard about it when I got off the planes. I was quite shocked, and I really felt for them as well, because it's a very tough process for any director to make a film, so I really sympathize with them. Zhang Yimou's first film came to Berlin, in fact, and we've been influenced by his cinematic oeuvre. He opened our eyes and he took us onto this path. So I was really looking forward to bringing my film to the Berlinale together with Zhang Yimou's film. Now, I can't speculate further on what's actually happened, but I'm very sorry about it. And also that other film, directed by a very young director. It's a very important moment for somebody to be able to bring a film to the Berlinale, and I'm very sorry for him that he's been unable to come this time round. Now, we have always been conscious of the need to respect all of the rules and parts of the system, but we need to keep working with that. Now, I don't think that my film will encounter any particular difficulties because we have followed all the procedures in this case. Thank you.
Hi, Barbara von der Loo for Tribune Frankfurt. First of all, a Happy New Year. It's the Year of the Pig. It's only just started. And thank you very much for this film. I have a question to the director and the main protagonist. For me, this really is a film about reconciliation. These families that are all related and interconnected, see a destiny that could be considered to be exemplary in terms of what they lived through. And then there's also a connection between these sons of these two families. It seems to me that one family loses all of the children because of the other family, because of various reasons. One child drowns. The other one is also killed. And then the third one disappears. Is that a part of the story that you wanted to emphasize? That you have such family constellations that develop in these ways? And then a question to Wang Jinshin. You, as the father and the mother, you suffer that fate of losing your children. And then there's this last scene when you look at this TV screen. I had this impression that you're kind of recalling your whole life and what happened, how you lost your children. Of course, it's terrible for the mother, but just as much for you, isn't it?
Oh, 人生就是这样的。
Well, that's the way life is. Everybody has their fate. Every family has its fate. And these two families that we play members of in particular, when they worked on the screenplay, I think they did a very, very good job as actors. We very much appreciated the help from it in creating characters who have to face their fates. I think, yeah, that's fate. And the director, Wang Xiaoshui, used as inspiration a lot of things that actually happened in life. Now, that's the film that we have in front of us now. Thank you. Yeah, Wang Jingchun is absolutely right to say that this is our film. That's what it's about, and it's also our life. Generation after generation of people in China have been living like that. And they want tranquility, happiness, long life and health in their lives. And I think ordinary people in China really are working hard to achieve that. Some people's lives go past very smoothly and happily, but it's not like that for everyone. A lot of people face setbacks and disasters, sometimes things that totally change their lives. Now, I have seen things like that too. So all of that has been my source of inspiration when working on the screenplay and also when shooting the films. I tried to pay attention to as much of that as possible, to give it as much emotional richness as possible. It's a story of Chinese people, but I hope and I'm sure that it will resonate also with audiences outside China in emotional terms. I think it's more of a universal story. Lots of things happen unexpectedly. Lots of setbacks come. Now, sometimes we look hard at them and try to find why it happened, but a lot of people simply don't have the time to do that. They just have to keep going, keep breathing without thinking too much about why. That's also part of our life. Thank you. Good afternoon. I'd first of all like to thank all of you. I'm from the one-child policy generation, so the film really resonated with me. I came out crying, in fact. I have two questions. Firstly, for Wang Xiaoshui, the director. Now, you said that you tried to give it as much emotional richness as possible, but it seems to express itself in a very restrained manner in that respect. So what were your considerations when it came to that means of expression? I'd also like to ask Wang Yuan, you have a very tactile character who doesn't have that many lines, but has an almost huge amount to say. So can you tell us a bit about how you worked together with Wang Xiaoshui to achieve that? Thank you. Well, I think or hope the film won't just resonate with the one-child policy generation of the 80s and 70s. There are some actually from the 1990s who have come up through that era. So, I mean, it also resonated a lot emotionally with their parents, not just the children of the one-child policy. Of course, who is moved to tears and who isn't is a very subjective question for the audience member. You know, it depends what the state of mind they're in when they go into the cinema, if they can stay awake for 3 hours, which is how long the film lasts for. Now, talking about emotional expression, I have big difficulty seeing people crying because I find it very, very awkward. You know, I try to sort of leave the room if I see people crying. So I'm not going to say, please don't cry, but, you know, I'm sort of nervous about it. On the other hand, you know, if people have wounds or setbacks they've experienced and if they can just carry on and keep smiling, they are worthy of loving too. Now, you see the two lead characters who've experienced an enormous amount, but they continue to be nice and understanding to people, and they try and keep smiling all the way through. You know, well, I think I would have been crying in that respect. No, they could have been trying to negotiate or constantly grumbling. That would have been a different film. That's not what I wanted to say there. No, I wanted to instead show two people who are still very tolerant and loving to others, despite having gone through so much. And there's lots of people like that who are in China. Now, if you look at many families' long histories, you see that, you know, they don't try and take it out on the rest of society. If they've had a disaster, they try and go somewhere else and to start anew. So they try and bring good luck to everyone. So that kind of resilience is extremely important, you know, and a lot of the time, you know, they're smiling, but they're also crying inside. Thank you. Good afternoon. Let me try and venture an answer. Now, when I first saw the screenplay, I felt that it was a very difficult part, and you know, I didn't have too much to rely on in terms of my own experience, but I learned a lot from Wang景春because a lot of what I do is playing a son who doesn't get on with his father at all. So, but he's been a very good mentor to me, in fact, as an actor. No. You know, he has to like kick me at one point, and then I asked, well, why does he do that? You know, from our first scene together, we don't get on with each other, and you know, that actually taught me a lot about his approach. I'm not a very mature actor, so I am not able to instantly get into the role like Wang景春. He helped me to get into the role after that first scene. And the director, too. The director asked me, do you want to do a read-through? Well, I asked, do you want to do a read-through before? He said, no, just go to the scene and just get a feel for the area physically. And I think that was a very good approach. Now, I'd like to thank咏梅, Wang Xiaoshui, and Wang景春for all that they've taught me about acting. Oh, yeah, I've got plenty more that I want to share with you. Okay.
Jetzt ist Ihre Frage, bitte. Oder? Ja, bitteschön. Ja, jetzt sind Sie dran.
Hello, I'd like to ask Mr. Wang, the director, about one scene that was... I like the film very much. Thank you very much. I'm from Sweden. But anyhow, the one scene I think was very interesting was where the workers have a big meeting, and the boss are saying that you are going to lose your job, and the workers are protesting like we never see in a Chinese film before like this. And after that, what happens actually? because it was a very interesting and very explosive scene. And then, what happened afterwards? Thank you.
一个电影其实它的现有的一切就是我要表达的一切。
Well, everything that I wanted to say is in the film, and the gaps that are left are purely for your imagination. As I said earlier on, we can't possibly get all 30 years into these 3 hours. Actually, I wanted to just do it within 2 hours. That was impossible. I had to take 3 hours. So in that process, I have to just select fragments and excerpts to show you as much as possible about what they've gone through and to give the audience the sense of having experienced a full story, which just happens to cover 3 decades. So you're free to imagine what else has happened, in particular with the overall social context during those gaps. But I feel that I've done enough as a director. Now, at certain points in the film, you see people faced with impossible choices, and they just have to keep living. I, as a director, feel that you have to take a stance. You have to be clear about what your objectives and goals are. And my objective was to maintain an independent and level-headed viewpoint. We have these huge social changes, but I have to remain, as a director, a level-headed observer of these in order to enable myself to give people food for thought, show them what's happened to people through these enormous social changes. The more change you have in a society, the more careful and meticulous you have to be in documenting it. Thank you.
Claudia Schulmerich, Frankfurt Weltexpresso.
Claudia Schulmerich from Frankfurt.
Auf Deutsch heißt die Musik.
In German, the song is the German translation of Auld Lang Syne, and it's also a very popular German song that everybody would know, and apparently a song that exists all over the world. I wanted to recall that this Berlin Film Festival has a heading as well. The personal is political, and it's also obvious in this film. I have a question about reconciliation and forgiveness, and I have a good reason to ask for that. I mean, every country has certain traumas. The Germans have a very special one. Certainly know that, and it will take many generations for that to pass. But now we're at a stage where we've come to terms with coming to terms, basically, because it didn't happen right in the post-war period after 1945. Now you're in this period, it's 30 years after, you start with coming to terms, and that process will continue for a while. But then, in your country, it's not as obvious who is the guilty one and who was innocent. There are only those who are innocent and those who suffered a tragic fate. It's like in a Greek tragedy, and be it Oedipus or others, people trigger events that they aren't really responsible for. They become guilty, although they are not. But reconciling and forgiving can only be done by those who suffered an injustice. However, in our society, those always seek forgiveness who were really the guilty ones. So my question really is, you're avoiding that issue, make it a universal tragedy of humankind. And the film, of course, means much more to you in China than here, but I think people will ask questions about who's guilty.
Yeah, okay. 其实确实很重要，因为
Indeed, that's very important. You know, if you look at people's relationship with politics in the world today, I mean, basically they're inseparable. For people in China, well, they're pretty willing to just keep getting on with their own lives and stay away from politics, but whether in China or elsewhere, you do end up getting affected by politics. Now, the individual is rather weak. If you ask every individual to go and search for the motives and the reasons behind what has happened, it's impossible. Somebody like Wang Jingchun may simply feel that that's fate. That's what a lot of people in China say. It's fate. They don't look too much at the causes. Obviously, as a director, I don't do that. I try to maintain as level-headed and meticulous an approach as possible in order to extract the maximum possible emotional richness and allow people to react as much as possible in their own ways to it. Now, I'm not somebody usually looking at whose fault it is and whose fault it isn't, because life is a very complicated thing. There is black within the white, there is white within the black. It's not just black and white. So this isn't the sort of film, where if it's a blockbuster, you see who the goodies are and the baddies are, and it tells you whose fault it is, whose fault it isn't. That's not what I do. But this, on the other hand, is what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to be as true as possible to the era. And obviously, people cannot live their lives entirely apart from politics. Thank you. Thank you very much for a fantastic film. I'd like to ask Du Jiang, what would you do if you had had a secret for 30 years? And I'd like to ask Qi Xi, secondly, what did you think of your part, and in particular, what led her to choose to keep the baby? Thank you.
If
I'd had a secret that I'd kept for 30 years, I would have to have kept it since age 3, so I probably wouldn't remember it that well. I am actually very good at keeping secrets myself. I'd be a very good spy, I think. I don't say things in my sleep or anything. I'd be quite good at keeping secrets, I think. Obviously, there are some weak points that our niceness inflicts on us, so we end up sometimes keeping secrets that we shouldn't and that end up hurting us, that bring us pain. Whereas if you tell the secret, you unburden yourself. Now, everybody has to make their own choices. When I looked at the screenplay, I was completely engrossed, in particular by people's capacity for love and their selflessness and disinclination to harm others, make other people sacrifice things. Thank you. I'm very grateful to Wang Xiaoshuai for giving this excellent opportunity to play somebody like Mo Li. Now, what she does, I think, is driven first and foremost by a kind of love. When she's very young, she has actually loved Wang Jingchun's character, Yao Jun. She's also racked by guilt for her brother and sister-in-law. Now, everybody, as she says in the film, everybody is a fool in love. I love Molly very much. And so you actually do fancy me then? Well, yeah, it's driven by love. She's loved you from a very early age. Are you okay with that? Are you comfortable with that? Well, when he's small, actually, I'm sort of involved with you guys. So,
Okay. Your question?
Buenos días todos. Muchas gracias por presentar entrevista de Berlín. 大家好，就是我有一个问题，就是我知道，就是我们中国的电影现在已经非常
the following question. I mean, people are very impressed with the artistic achievements of Chinese directors, many of whom are represented here. 2018 was the 40th anniversary of Chinese reform and opening up. I'd like to ask Wang Yuan, as a young cast member and a member of a new generation of Chinese actors, did you try to draw on other people's experience When creating the character, did you try and ask your parents about their own experiences in particular, 2 decades worth of experience? Now, the director is very right to say, like, people cannot live as an island. Some people have good lives, some people have very tough lives. Lots of young people in China, the same age as Wang Yuan, are very rebellious. Now, what suggestions do you have to real rebels and to their parents who are trying to bring them up better? Oh, a very tough question there. Well, after reading the whole screenplay, I had an idea for what the social environment was in that era, but I didn't live in that era myself, so I wasn't totally familiar with it. So when I went on set, I tried to bring on board all my passions in life, my loves, my hates, and my love for my own father and mother, and try and create a rebellious 17 or 18-year-old. I used my own fairly primitive passions to create the character. If we talk about rebels in society, well, I think everyone has the experience of rebellion. It's quite commonplace. But you have to remember that the people who love you most are your own mother and father. So you have to make clear choices in the end about what you do and you don't do. Thank you very much. Well, let me just add a point here to what Wang Yuan has said. Of course, young people are living in a new society now, so they have to decide what they really want and what they really want to do, and it's their choice. Apart from looking for who's right and who's wrong elsewhere, you also have to take responsibility for your own actions. In some cases, if you take one small step, you'll no longer be able to turn back. Many things are irreversible. At the current stage that Chinese society is in, everybody has to be responsible and take responsibility for their own actions. And when making films, they have to make a film that they themselves feel comfortable with. Thank you.
Peter Cloud for DPA. It's a great film. If I was a member of the jury, you'd definitely win the main award here. Yes, you can give them an applause. It's a wonderful film. I would like to come back to the question asked by my colleague from AFP. You said you came to Berlin, and it's only then when you learned that the other film was withdrawn. I mean, there are so many rumors here. Do you know more? Is it censorship? Is it not censorship? Do you have any inside knowledge? Could you please comment?
确实很难帮助你们弄清楚，因为我们确实
I can't shed much more light on it myself. I really don't know what was going on there. If I did, I'd be able to tell you more. Everyone, when you make a film, faces different difficulties and challenges. I can't help you to analyze a film that I haven't personally seen. I haven't seen that film 1 second. But let me tell you a little bit more about the process that's involved. A few years back, if the content of a film was approved, you would receive what's called a dragon seal. Now, you see that thing on a green background at the beginning of the film, right? Now, the way it used to be was that if you had that dragon seal, you could go to Cannes, Venice, Berlin, or so on, and show the film. And then when you got back, you'd start preparing for distribution. Now, on the other hand, it's different for each film. Some films go into distribution 2-3 years after their appearance in a festival. Others take half a year or a year to get onto most people's screens. Now, you now have to get a projection permit in China, which is well, that's the second requirement that you have to get after the Dragon Seal. There's sorry, director. The law on cinema of the People's Republic of China came out in 2016. So your last film was 2013, so that new law hadn't come out. So, so don't mislead people, please. Yeah. Oh, so I'm getting old. Sorry. Yeah. I know I was talking about the past. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So I can't really help you on that. Sorry about that.
Ja, Dankeschön. So traurig wir auch sind, dass der Film von Zhang Yimou nicht läuft. Wir sind unheimlich stolz.
And of course, we're very sad not to be able to watch that film here. But at least we're lucky and we're able to see this film. So thank you very, very much for this film. Thank you for being here and presenting so long, my son. I hope you enjoy the festival. Thank you very much.